Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Total War Warhammer. I know that we've had a lot of Total War Warhammer on the channel recently, and I did just start a co-op campaign series that's going to be going up as well, but I promise you that there will be other things coming out as well. Just in these first few weeks that it's out, I kind of wanted to show some things off and get some of the videos out there. But we'll be doing some other stuff as well, but it is Thursday, and that means that well, anyways, at least in the past, that's when I've done replays, so we'll see how things go. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do. I say this like every episode. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I do have a fun little replay here for you today, and I wanted to show you guys each of the different factions, or each of the different races in the game, in multiplayer, as well as talking about their roster really quickly before we get into the game. And once I've done each of the races, then we'll just do some random battles and see what happens. But this is as the Greenskins. I'll be playing as the Greenskins, and real live E-Thug will be playing as the Empire. So we'll just go through really quickly and look at what the Greenskins can bring to a fight. So for their lords, their two legendary lords are Grimgor Ironhide and Azag the Slaughterer. Now Grimgor Ironhide is a melee expert. This guy is pretty damn tough. In fact, he might just be one of the toughest melee lords in the game. Perhaps Karl Franz and Archaon could give him a run for his money, or Ungrim, but he's pretty damn tough. Then you have Azag the Slaughterer. He's a little bit cheaper, but he also has a Skull Munch. He has Skull Muncha, which is a wyvern. So you can put him on the wyvern, and his advantage is he's okay at melee, but that's not really his thing. He is armored. He does have armor piercing. He does cause terror. Maybe that's just with the wyvern he causes terror. But the thing that makes him different than Grimgor, besides being cheaper and having the wyvern, is he has access to the I believe these are necromancy skills, spells. I think these are necromancy skills. Yeah. So he does have access to some magic, which is a little bit unique for orcs. You also can bring an orc war boss or a great goblin shaman. The shaman here. No, but yeah. So orc war boss, basically a downsized Grimgor Ironhide. And then he is shielded though, which is different than Grimgor. Then the goblin great shaman is a spellcaster, not as powerful as Azag the Slaughterer, because he's not very good in melee at all. He's not armored or anything. He's got some different magic though, but I'm not super familiar with them. For heroes, you can bring orc shamans, night goblin shamans, or goblin big bosses. So, cool stuff. For infantry, the orcs are not lacking. They have black orcs, which are their toughest unit, one of the toughest melee units in the game, very heavily armored, and they have armor piercing. They're pretty cool looking too. Savage orc biguns. So savage orcs have war paint, which helps them to have some physical resistance, but they are still weak to magic, and they have no armor. And I don't know if warpaint, like how good warpaint actually is, like what does that equal down here, like what I know that it's not the same as armor, it doesn't work in the same way, but what does it actually worth? I'm not 100% sure. And biguns, any orc bigun, it gets this trait: bigger in ardor, the heaviest and strongest and meanest of the orcs. Biguns are eager to prove it against enemies of all sizes. So these guys, I'm pretty sure from the wording of that, are good against large. They also dual wield weapons, so they're not shielded. Then you have orc big ones, just regular ones. These ones actually have armor. But other than that, they're kind of the same dealio. They are bigger in ardor. Bigger in ardor. But they are armored. Whereas savage orc ones actually have more speed, which could be nice, but they have less melee defense. I don't know. Then you just have savage orcs, just plain up savage orcs. They also have frenzy as well as warpaint. Then you have orc boys. These are kind of your mainstay infantry. They're kind of your mid-tier, well, kind of low mid-tier unit, but this is kind of the rank and file of your army, orc boys. They do have a shield. Anything above them does not have a shield, so that is kind of nice. Then you have night goblin fanatics for 450 as well. They're not as good, straight up, but they do have poisoned attacks, and they have a strange attack as well that I'll show you when I get in the battle. Then there's Night Goblins for 400, and just regular goblin spearmen here. But they don't actually have a bonus versus large, it appears. They're just, the spears are too small, the goblins are too weak, so I guess they just don't have a bonus versus large. But then you have missile infantry, you have savage orc arrow boys, night goblin archer fanatics, orc arrow boys, night goblin archers, and goblin archers. I know the orc versions have more range, and they're also better in melee, but night goblin archers do have poisoned ammunition, which is interesting. For cavalry and chariots, they actually have a surprisingly large amount of options here. They have savage orc boar boy biggins, so savage orc biggins on boars. Then you have orc boar chariots, orc boar boy biggins, so orc boy biggins on boars. Then you have savage orc boar boys, orc boar boys. So basically all of the infantry translated into cavalry, except for the chariots different. Then you have forest goblin spider riders and forest wolf riders, which are different and kind of unique for cheaper options. Then you have for missile cavalry and chariots, they have goblin wolf rider archers, forest goblin spider rider archers, and goblin wolf chariots. For monsters, they have 3 monsters: trolls, giants, and the arachnarok spider. For artillery, they have goblin rock lobber and doom diver catapult. So this is an interesting faction because they actually are the only faction that has something in each category. They have infantry, they have missile infantry, they have cavalry, they have missile cavalry, they have monsters, and they have artillery. Now, the only section I would say they're really good in is infantry, and they have some good monsters. Overall, they're a pretty good faction, though. They have a lot of options, and I've already ranted for too long, so let's go ahead and just jump into this battle replay here. You can see here that I did decide to bring Azog the Slaughterer, some goblin spearmen, some night goblins, including 1 fanatic, some orc boys, orc boy biggin, black orcs, some goblin archers. Yeah, we can see it better here now. Yeah, so my front line is made up of the generic goblin spearmen here. They're really cheap. Well, they're not super cheap compared to like zombies, but they're pretty much one of the lowest tier units you can get in the game. So I do have a front line of them to absorb any fire or charges that you might have. Then I have some goblin archers behind them. They're not that good, but it's what I could afford. This was a lower budget game for the most part. Then I have some night goblins as a third line here, including some night goblin fanatics. Then is my kind of back row here. I have some orc boys, 3 orc boys. And my final line is made up with 2 trolls, a orc biggins, and a black orc unit. And I do also have the Azog the Slaughterer on his wyvern here, Skull Muncha. And then over here in the trees, I also have 3 units of boar boys. I have orc boar boys, orc boar boy biggins, and another orc boy biggins. So 1 regular one and 2 the biggins. Over here you can see the Empire has begun setting up his lines in the edge of the trees here. He's got some crossbowmen and some handgunners. Looks like 3 crossbows and a single handgunner. Then he's got a long line here, including just kind of a mix of his infantry, but there's some great swords in there, some swordsmen, more great swords, swordsmen, great swords, swordsmen, halberdiers, and more halberdiers. He's got a witch hunter, which is a good unit for targeting other heroes or monsters and killing them. He's also got Karl Franz, not on any mounts though, which is interesting, but he is pretty powerful. Especially, he's a really good duelist, so really good against other heroes. He's got some Reiksguard and some Demigriff Knights in here. Not the halberd variant, but the anti-infantry with lances variant. So they're coming out of the trees now. My men are in position, firing arrows, and now my front line of goblins are going to charge into his main line here. The great swords are absolutely going to wreck these guys. But they are basically there to absorb their charge. And now that they have done that, I can start moving in my night goblins, which will kind of make up the secondary group coming in. You can actually see, I think there's the fanatic group over here. Where's the fanatic group? They have an interesting... I want to see the fanatics. They do something funky, but yeah, basically I just rush in all my infantry here at this point. My goal was to see where I needed them and throw them in as needed. But the goblins are pretty shit, so basically everywhere needed more orcs. His demigriffs have come into here, and they're fighting orc biggins. Luckily, these guys do have the bonus versus large, but I mean, demigriff knights are still fucking terribly powerful, so they're not going to last too long. Then his Reiksguard did get in here into my backline, which is unfortunate. So things are looking a little bit grim for me, but Azog here is using Spirit Leech and the Xerax here. So Spirit Leech is a really powerful ability on single targets. It's kind of known as what people use to snipe generals. Also, my boars are now moving into his line here, trying to take out some of his crossbowmen and whatnot. And over here, I have won out the battle on my right flank. But he, with his Reichsguard and Demigryph Knights, has won out the left flank. So now it's kind of going to be an interesting battle where we're now pushing kind of from the flanks at each other. So we have to kind of reform, and it turns into a bit of a mosh pit here. I'm throwing in Azog with his Wyvern to try and cause some terror and attack some stuff. But I'm also trying to kill off Karl Franz here, because if Karl Franz dies, then his army's going to lose a lot of its morale. And I think I might actually kill him here. Yep, there he goes. So I think I used 3 or 4 Spirit Leeches on him to kill him, which is a lot of magic to use on a hero or a lord, but I don't know if it's broken or if there's other ways kind of around it, but Spirit Leech seems to do a lot of damage to, seems to be pretty powerful. I mean, I used 3 or 4 of them and I was able to kill Karl Franz, and now his men are going to have very low morale. Their leadership's going to take a good hit. But as you can see, I mean, it's just really a mosh pit now. There's not a lot for me to commentate over. I mean, his men are retreating, my men are retreating, and then as they retreat, we just throw them back into this massive melee here. And I'm just hoping that I can out-leadership him, out-morale him. A lot of his demigryphs are dead. He's got some great swords here holding their ground pretty well against trolls. Trolls have really low leadership. I don't even know if they're worth it, but they can cause some damage as long as they don't break. He does still have his Witch Hunter here, though. He is surrounded by these orc boys, boar boys, biggins. Jesus, the orcs and their names. They're really hard to say, but I think something he could have done better, perhaps, was using his Witch Hunter to try and take out Azog a bit better. Azog did take a lot of damage trying to get up close to Karl Franz to use his abilities, though, because he was using his crossbowmen and handgunners to snipe him, but it wasn't quite enough before I was able to kill off Karl Franz, and I was pretty careful about it too. But you can see that I do have the advantage now. His men are retreating more than mine. I'm using Spirit Leech on his Witch Hunter now, but he's almost broken. He's got some great swords here, still holding the line against the orc boar boys, trolls, black orcs here now running in. These black orcs look fucking awesome. Some night goblins. I mean, I just have a mosh pit going on of my own guys. Oh, and it's over. Battles in this are sometimes a bit quicker. I think maybe morale could be boosted a bit. There's Karl Franz dead on the ground. So we look here at the kills, and you're going to see some interesting stuff. I mean, first of all, obviously my goblins did really shit. I mean, 45 kills, actually surprisingly high for just a regular goblin. But the rest did really poorly for the most part. Even my orc boys didn't do super well. Although kills in this game are lower than they have been in past Total War games. So that is something to keep in mind. And Azog the Slaughter didn't get that many kills, but he killed Karl Franz, and that's why he was so important for this. Goblin Archers did nothing. Even the Orc Biggins didn't really do too much, but they got hit by the Demigryphs right off the bat, and I don't think they were able to get back into the fight and do a whole bunch more. Black Orcs did the best out of my infantry, obviously. I mean, they're Black Orcs. That's what they do. The Boar Boys here did pretty good, and the Trolls did actually better than I thought they would. But if we look over here at his army, you'll see that his infantry did okay, comparatively. A little bit better than my Goblin line. A bit better, not much better. But his great swords all did very excellently. His crossbowmen and handgunners did not get too many kills, but I was able to get them, get my Boar Boys back in there pretty quickly. But his cavalry also got a lot of kills. So why didn't he win? He probably could have won this, maybe. Obviously, the great swords were very valuable, and the cavalry was very valuable. The main line is never going to be very valuable for the Empire, though. They're never going to get a lot of kills with their state troops. But he could have protected Karl Franz a little bit better. I mean, me getting off a couple Spirit Leeches on him was inevitable with my Wyvern, and he was unmounted, so it was going to happen. But perhaps he could have pulled him back a little bit more, but he would have lost some of the potential. He also could have used his Witch Hunter to try and hunt down Azog a little bit better, although that would be hard through all that combat, and I kept pulling him out. But perhaps he could have tried a little bit harder with his Witch Hunter to go specifically for Azog. The only other thing I can really think of is artillery. I think artillery might have helped him quite a bit in this because it would have done quite a bit of damage as I moved up to him, and then it probably could have pounded my men that were coming back into the fight and kept them from getting back into that fight. So I think that would have helped him, having some artillery, perhaps losing a crossbowman. Actually, probably the handgunners, because they're AP damage, whereas crossbowmen do more damage, but it's not AP. Orcs don't have a ton of armor, so perhaps keep the crossbowman, take the handgunner out. Maybe lose the Demigryph Knights in favor of another, I don't know. Something in there to get a little bit of artillery, but anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed that battle. Seems like the orcs are pretty good for the most part. They have good options. They don't have the best units, I would say, in any one category, although the Ragnarok Spider is probably one of the more expensive monsters, but they're good. They're good. They're fun. So, yeah. I hope you've enjoyed this Total War Warhammer battle replay, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And I'll see you in the next episodes too, because hopefully there will be something besides Total War Warhammer on my channel soon. I have a pretty damn busy weekend, but we'll try and get some other stuff up besides Warhammer very shortly for you guys. So, yep. See you in the next one.